Hey y'all, I just read a really great book. I read Courage to Soar, and it's all about Simone Biles. It's written in her words, and then she also is with Michelle Burford to write it. But so it's Simone's story, and I loved it. So I've thought she was really cool for a while now. In case you don't know, she is a very, very, very accomplished gymnast. She competed in the Olympics in Rio, won a whole bunch of medals, broke a bunch of records. She's awesome. So I knew a little bit about her before I started reading, but I'm kind of on like a memoir kick, and so when I saw this at the library, I was like, okay. She is just so cool. So she was in foster care as a kid. Her mom was in drugs and stuff, and the way Simone handles that was very, very mature. She's got this great perspective on the whole thing. So she was in foster care with her siblings, and ultimately she and her younger sister were adopted by their biological grandparents, who then, of course, became her parents. And they're just fantastic. But there were a couple of things in this book that I really wanted to talk about. The whole book was good. Clearly, I'm recommending it. You should totally read this book. I was really impressed with the whole thing. But there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. Specifically, first, I wanted to talk about her view on like body image and stuff, because obviously that's a big deal, especially with our social media today, you know, blah, blah, blah. She has this great perspective. She has never, well, at least in the book, she doesn't say that she's ever struggled with anything with food. Her coach never pressured her to diet or to count calories or anything like that. She encouraged her to eat healthy and listen to her body and exercise all the time, which clearly, if you're going to be a competitive gymnast, you are exercising all the time, right? But so her coach just handles the whole thing really, really nicely, which I really liked. So Simone was never pressured by her coach. Simone talks in this book a lot about how she is built as a powerful gymnast. She's not this little petite pixie, is the word she uses, who just fling themselves around the bars and can do all these things, right? She's got the muscle. Simone is tiny in the way that she's extremely short. She's one of the shortest people in a lot of the competitions she goes to, but she's very powerful. She's got that muscle. She has always had muscle, even as a kid. When she was really little, kids teased her about how big her muscles were, and she didn't like that for a long time. Now, obviously, she's proud of it, which is awesome. But she was at a meet once where she hadn't done her best, and she was mad at herself for it, and she had just totally screwed this up, right? And she was walking past, and there was this curtain, and there were two coaches behind the curtain, not her coaches, and one of them said to the other, he was talking down about Simone, and he goes, she could have done a lot better if she lost some weight. It looks like she swallowed a deer, right? He says something along those lines. The swallowed deer thing is a quote. And Simone is just already ticked off. She's mad at herself because she did not do well, and she had been in this weird funk. But she's also like, are you kidding me? And so she tells her coach, and she tells her parents, and everyone's like, no, like you don't know what he's talking about, blah, blah. And they say that they kind of make the excuse that he was talking about the lines in a gymnast. So the lines your body makes as you're doing your routines and your stunts and everything. And she like listened to them, and it didn't completely bother her, but she was also like, he wasn't talking about lines, right? But she is just not one of those pixie gymnasts. But I love it because she was kind of like, that was a jerk move on his part. He shouldn't have said that. But she didn't let it faze her. She didn't let it get in her head and screw her up and make her think that she was overweight. Clearly, she is not. She is pure muscle. She's just a powerhouse of strength. But I loved that. I loved that even as this outsider, because for some reason, we have a tendency to listen to outsiders than to the people closest to us. This outsider said that she was fat and it looked like she swallowed a deer. And she's like, you don't know what you're talking about, right? And she didn't let it throw her in a funk, and she didn't get paranoid about food, and I just love her example on that. Don't buy into all the fads, and don't worry about what other people have to say. If you feel good, if your body feels good, then you're doing it right. Yeah, I have a lot I could say on that. I get really into the whole body image thing. But that was one thing that I liked about Simone. Also, she's just funny. And throughout this whole book, you see her personality come through. She's hilarious. She has some great stories from her childhood that I really liked that were totally relatable. She talks about how she and her sister used to throw rocks in their backyard's neighbor's pool, and they didn't think anything of it, but it was messing up his pool, and one day he saw them. So he comes to their house and he's like, your girls are throwing rocks in my pool. And they straight up lied. They were like, no, we didn't. And he's like, I just saw you. So that, in that moment, like, it's a funny story, but she says that's when she was like, I'm not gonna lie. And she sticks to that throughout her life. She's like, I'm not going to lie to my mom. And she tries to be an honorable person, which I loved. She talks a lot about the gymnast that she looked up to that then she ends up competing against. And that was cool because she continues to be impressed by them, even as she is competing at the same meets and the same events and doing the same stunts and skills. She continues to just be like, they are so talented, they're very good at XYZ, and I loved that. I felt like it kind of showed that she is humble, but also just I feel like we should all do that in life. If there's someone you look up to and you aspire to be like them, just if you someday then become like them, that doesn't mean you should change your perspective on them. Continue to think of them as such a great person and just role model and whatever. So that was cool. That was kind of a weird tangent. I don't really know. Hopefully you understood what I was saying right there. But she was just great. And it's got some pictures in here. I related to Simone on quite a few levels. I was the shortest in my class for a very, very long time. I'm going to try to show you one of the pictures that I wanted to bring up. Can you see that picture? That is her and her sister. Simone is in the blue shirt. And she talks about, she's in middle school, I think, at that point. She talks about how in that picture, the backpack is so huge, and that the white part hanging down, those are those belts that we all thought were so cool for a little while, where you would tie the knot and the strings hung down or the ribbon hung down or whatever. I thought those were like the thing when I was in middle school. But she's making fun of herself. She's like, that backpack is as big as me. I'm so short that the belt is dragging on the ground. She's like, what was I thinking? And I just love that she can be that real, because raise your hand if you look back at your middle school pictures and you're like, oh, yikes, right? We all go through bad haircuts that we thought were cool and bad styles, or maybe you're the one wearing the funky puce eyeshadow, whatever. We all go through those phases. Like Simone, I loved those belts, and now that I see that picture of her where it is so long that it looks ridiculous, I'm thinking, oh, that's what I looked like because I'm short like Simone. So that was hysterical. I could totally relate to that. She kind of climaxes this book at the Rio Olympics, which was really fun because that was kind of that was when I tuned into who she was. And I just love the way she talks about the Rio Olympics, and she talks about the friendships she has with her teammates and how it felt to be there and be surrounded by all these elite gymnasts and from all over the world. And she just, again, the humility. She has this humble perspective the whole time, which was really, really cool. So I'll wrap it up. I don't need to tell you everything in the book because then you won't read it, but you should totally read this. Courage to Soar. The subtitle is A Body in Motion, A Life in Balance, Simone Biles. I mean, look how cute she is. And then I love this picture. She's adorable. She's just so fun. And this book, it was actually in the young adult section of the library. So anyone can read it. She's not very old. She's younger than me. I don't remember how old she is right now. I don't know. Whatever. Not a big deal. But you should totally read this book. She's just charming and delightful, and she's funny, relatable, and it's just a great story. Especially, she started out in foster care, and she had a mother who was into drugs and couldn't take care of her, and now she's become this world-renowned gymnast. That's pretty cool. Plus, she gave Zac Efron a hug, and that part of the book was super hysterical. Anyway, you should totally read it. I highly recommend it. She's fun. You'll love it. Anyway, keep reading.